Okay. Good evening. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So this evening, we're going to be taking a look at Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, text 24.
Sorry, Garuda, say that one more time.
Chapter 6, text 24. Would anybody like to recite the verse?
I can.
Okay, thank you.
Nishchayena yoktavyo yogo nirvina chetasa sankalpa pabhavan kamam tyakva sarvam ashe shata manasai vendriya gramam viniyamya samantataha.
Saha, that.
That.
Yoga, system. Nichani, with firm determination. Yoktaya, must be practiced. Yogaha, in such practice. Anapani syat jasa, without deviation. Sankapa, material desires. Prabhavani, bhavan, born of. Karman, sense, gratification. Tayakta, giving up. Sarvan, all. Aschata, completely. Manasa, by the mind. Eva, certainly. Indriya Granman, the full set of senses. Viniyamya, regulating. Samanta, from all sides. Translation. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with undeviating determination and faith. One should abandon, without exception, all material desires born of false ego, and thus control all the senses on all sides of the mind. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The yoga practitioner should be determined and should patiently prosecute the practice without deviation. One should be sure of success at the end and pursue this course with great perseverance, not becoming discouraged if there is any delay in the attainment of success. Success is sure for the rigid practitioner. Regarding Bhakti Yoga, Rupa Goswami says, Yutsanan nishadyad dihir tat karma parvantat sangatayak sat urvati te sadbir bhakti prasidyati The process of bhakti yoga can be executed successfully with full-hearted enthusiasm, perseverance, and determination by following the prescribed duties in the association of devotees and by engaging completely in the activities of goodness. As far as determination, one should follow the example of the sparrow who lost her eggs in the waves of the ocean. A sparrow laid her eggs on the shore of the ocean, but the big ocean carried away the eggs on its waves. The sparrow became very upset and asked the ocean to return her eggs. The ocean did not consider her appeal. So the sparrow decided to dry up the ocean. She began to pick out the water in her small beak, and everyone laughed at her for her impossible determination. The news of her activity spread, and at last Garuda, the gigantic bird carrier of Lord Vishnu, heard it. He became compassionate toward his small sister bird, and so he came to see the sparrow. Garuda was very pleased by the determination of the small sparrow, and he promised to help. Thus Garuda at once asked the ocean to return her eggs. Last he himself take up the work of the sparrow. The ocean was frightened at this and returned the eggs. Thus the sparrow became happy by the grace of Garuda. Similarly, the practice of yoga, especially bhakti yoga and Krishna consciousness, may appear to be a very difficult job, but if anyone follows the principles with great determination, the Lord will surely help, for God helps those who help themselves. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Ti Nama. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschata. So yes, this verse kind of came to me. It was interesting. I went for a visit again to see my mother this past weekend. We actually went to Damayanti's parents, her father's birthday, and we went and saw my mom. And I was kind of like, thinking about like, as I was spending time with her, like, faith, like, what kind of faith do I have? Like, when I'm facing my death, or facing old age or disease. I don't know how my mom probably lived, I would guess, a lot longer, but I don't know. We don't know. But when that time comes where I'm frail in my body and I'm facing death, like, what kind of faith did I cultivate in my life, and how would that play out in those moments or weeks or years that I'm in that state? So I was thinking about faith when I went and saw my mom, and thinking about my own faith. And I thought this might be a fun kind of topic to look at for the class that I'm giving this week. And I went to the back of the Bhagavad Gita, and I went through, it's really, I went through the back of the Bhagavad Gita has a general index where there's like topics, and you can kind of read. It has like, different pages, like faith, for instance. I was looking up faith, and there's different contexts of faith as well. And it was really it was difficult for me to pick a verse. There's so many different verses. And then I had a lot of more questions come up for me, like during that process. I'm like, oh, I don't even know about that. And maybe we'll go into that further into the class tonight if there's time, or, maybe I could hear from the participants what their sense is on some questions I had regarding that. But I ended up settling on this particular verse because I was thinking about last month's class I gave. I kind of brought up this idea that, I was inspired different times in my life, meeting different individuals that had spiritual practices or religions that they were giving their lives to. And certain individuals really stood out to me, the ones that were having like a really tangible, like authentic experience, where a lot of them were even communicating with God, either through prayer or dreams or reading scripture. They were getting like direct like interaction experiences that, you know, it kind of like, it was just like, okay, this is true for them. Okay. And that was profound for me to have that experience. So I was thinking about that when I read this particular verse, because I was thinking about like, what are the qualities of the individuals that were having these experiences? Even like our particular practice that we're following, Srila Prabhupada, for example, like, you know, speaking to his spiritual master in dreams, or, you know, just throughout the day, or, you know, and then Krishna as well, interacting with him. And then if I spent a little bit of time going into like past acharyas and them having conversations with their deities and having dreams and, you know, having real interactions with these, you know, in these pastimes. And I'm like, there's a certain quality that, you know, these individuals had, you know, in our particular line that come to mind for me, and these individuals that I've met in my life. And that's like really rigorous determination and steadiness, like complete, like that is definitely a quality of those individuals. Like without that, like, you know, quality, I could see like, you know, individuals that weren't necessarily having such a real, tangible, authentic, alive experience, you know, that I could see the relationship between the two. Like, well, you know, these are just individuals that are going to church on Sunday, and, you know, they're don't have any really rigorous practice outside of that. And so anyway, so that's why this particular verse stood out to me particularly, because I could see in my own practice in bhakti yoga and the structures that I've been giving my life to, that the more rigorous I was, the more like directly I was experiencing very real, tangible experiences that, you know, could be coincidental, but it was just like too often and like too, like, you know, connected to, it just seemed like something outside myself is interacting. It's not just my mind interacting with me. At least that's my experience anyway. So that's why I really like this verse, and I really, you know, I like the determination of the sparrow, and it seems like an endeavor that's like so foolish, and like, you know, it's like, it seems like an impossible endeavor, and yet she's doing it anyway, because she's determined to get her eggs back. And then, you know, thinking about like, you know, this practice can seem like, you know, well, I'm just starting out, and, you know, I have like years of conditioning, and I'm bombarded every day by society, and you know, it's like, I'm not like, it's kind of like it may feel, at least for me, it's felt in the past like this isn't like impossible for me, or it's like it's going to take forever, and like there's no way I could accomplish my goal. I'm like too conditioned, I'm too attached, I have too much, like, you know, I'm like too consumed with my false ego experience. But what I found personally directly was that I given myself, you know, taking a drop of water day by day, taking a drop of water, that I was, you know, Garuda didn't come to me specifically. I had other Srila Prabhupada, Krishna, you know, other interactions in different contexts that I felt like I'm receiving support, and I'm receiving like I'm receiving the I'm gaining so much more like through that experience than I was thinking. It was like I was just thinking about what I could do. Oh, I can't dry up the water in the ocean, but, you know, Garuda sure could for the sparrow. So, you know, it just, so I guess I was looking at like the relationship between the sparrow and my own relationship and giving myself to this practice. I have to be honest with you, I feel a little bit kind of off. I had a coaching session yesterday, and I had a lot of just a lot of stuff come up for me, a lot of feelings, emotions, kind of looking at different aspects of myself. So I feel a little bit kind of spread out this afternoon anyway. So I'm going to refer to my notes briefly. Okay, so yeah, so I did want to share like something that I experienced I listened to Srila Prabhupada's, there wasn't a lecture on this particular class. There was like 5 texts all in one lecture, but this was at the end of the lecture. And Srila Prabhupada points out that it's like really to keep the determination, like to keep that like steadiness and determination. It's like, it's a must to control sex life, and it's a must to control it or to completely give it up. Like, it's like a must. That was like something that he really was really emphasizing. You know, I was thinking about like my own relationship with like this practice, the structure of the 4 regulated principles in relationship to the mantra chanting, and seeing how my steadiness really, like, I could see the difference between like really being rigorous with the 4 regulated principles and then not being rigorous with the 4 regulated principles. Like when I first started practicing, and then this past year, I can see a difference in the structure that I've given myself to this past year through initiation, seeing the direct experience of not only staying more steady, but also the results of that. Like, what experience am I having through that experience? Yeah, so that's kind of yeah. So I guess I wanted to talk about I guess I don't know. I'm feeling a little like I'm blanking out, to be honest with you. I felt like really clear about this last night, what I put together. I'm going to pause there for a second. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Yes.
Thank you, Garuda Prabhu. You're so shiny. I was looking at you and said, wow, you're speaking about following the 4 regulated principles and being, rigorous about your practice. And I was just listening to a class with Srila Prabhupada, and he was saying, like, are you ready to make, beautiful people? And I was looking at you and say, yes, devotees are so beautiful and shiny and effulgent, and it's just what was coming to me. And now, you started to say, like, you were looking at face, and then, there was different places in the Bhagavad Gita that speak about face from a different angle. It's different. And here, the sparrow seems to have determination. And so I was just putting out there, like, the question, what's the connection, if any, between faith and determination, and what comes first? That's what I'm inspired to ask, or to.
Okay. Yeah. So faith and determination. Yeah. So I mean, I guess, connecting to my own experience, I would say like faith like came first for me, like having some faith through like really getting to know like the messenger that's bringing this, you know, message to me. I was given the opportunity to receive this message through you, Mother Malini, and dear Govinda, and then ultimately through Srila Prabhupada, you know, I'm like, oh, okay. And then you're like, no, Srila Prabhupada is actually the messenger. I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, getting to know Srila Prabhupada personally, I feel like really like gave me faith. And then the process, giving myself to the process, experimenting with the scientific process that this is, and seeing the results of that process gave me more faith. And then hearing about like, well, what's possible? Where does this process go? Where could I take this process? And hearing about that through Srila Prabhupada and the devotees in the community, hearing about their own direct experiences with their giving their selves, however much they gave themselves, and their experience of the results of that. So I feel like for me personally, that was my experience of like having faith first, that like there's like a goal here, or there's like something here that I could give myself to, and these are the results of that. And then me taking those steps, and then me seeing, oh, okay, well, I'm experiencing something real. And then me being more determined, giving myself more. I feel like the determination is like, for myself personally, I'm finding that I'm becoming more determined as time progresses with my giving myself to this process. I guess that would be my response to your question.
Yeah, like, you know, that's the response of the Acharya, is faith come first. And then with faith, we associate with devotees. When we associate with devotee, our faith increase. Our faith increase to the point that we want to follow the regulative principle. And then our faith increase that we want to take initiation, and our faith increase. And, you know, an eternity, like we want to clean up the dirt, because that's what comes next, is the cleaning the dirt. And the determination, yeah, it's interesting, because sometimes I'm thinking, you know, you require determination to build trust also.
Mm.
You know, like, of course, first there is some faith of something, but I see so many people who like come to Krishna consciousness, and I know many of them came to Krishna consciousness maybe, you know, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And that determination didn't come, even so there is some faith there.
Mm.
But the determination, like something is there, some faith, some attraction, some favorable feeling, but then that determination that I'm going to try the process, and through trying that process, I'm going to experience more and more fulfillment and happiness. It's not there. I guess it's also based on faith. Trust that by giving give myself more to that process, I will experience something. Yeah. And also what comes to me is, you know, like you speaking about your realization from years back when you did the experiments. And I remember you really took the scientific process. You apply a scientific process to yourself, which I haven't seen people doing before. It was the first time I was seeing someone doing that. And I was quite fascinated by your process of applying the science. Okay, I'm going to make the experiment and in and out and see how it goes and what I observe. And you were very observing of the results. It's like you were doing an experiment and then really looking at the result. And I haven't seen many people doing that. And what I wanted to share is that determination seems to like fluctuate, because it's like the tendency, not in what you were sharing, but the tendency is to forget. Like when they have a lot of determination, yes, that's the way, like Prabhupada said, I love in his purport that you read, nice purport. He said, the yoga practitioner should be determined and should patiently prosecute the practice without deviation. One should be sure of success at the end and pursue this course with great perseverance, not becoming discouraged if there is any delays in attainment of success. Success is sure for the rigid practitioner. So yeah, I'm hearing it now, and maybe by tomorrow morning I will have forgotten. And then when I forgot, determination kind of is gone too.
Well, maybe you could read it again tomorrow.
That's a plan. That's a thing, to stay connected with Srila Prabhupada's books is a good way.
Yeah. I was hearing from Srila Prabhupada the other day, and is exactly that. Like he's like, right here in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying this directly. You will be successful if you are determined, you are committed. So it's like he's like really pushing the point. Like Krishna is saying this directly to you, and I'm just like, yeah, I guess, yeah. So why aren't I trusting? I was thinking about, like, with your sharing just now, is like one of the things that I did hear Srila Prabhupada say with this particular verse is that enthusiasm drives determination as well. Like that's like a big part of it. Like, and then thinking about like my own enthusiasm, and then you shared just a few minutes ago about some devotees that you've met in your life that like they had trouble like keeping that determination going and keeping that like keeping it steady, like, and I'm kind of like wondering, like, what about the association? What are we associating with that's supporting our enthusiasm and our determination? And what are we associating with that's not supporting our enthusiasm and determination? So I'm kind of like, thinking about that question right there. Because I know for me personally, like, yeah, like the more I associate and hear directly, personal testimony is so like impactful. It's so powerful. Like, what are you experiencing immediately in your Krishna consciousness? What's alive for you? Like being in that, like, having that association and being in those questions with each other, for me personally, is like what really keeps me enthused and keeps me like determined. Like going, we did Sankirtan a few weekends ago in St. Augustine, and that was the first time, like, I mean, I did some kirtan and, here locally, but this is the first time walking around, like, kind of like a parade for me. Yeah, it was pretty uncomfortable for me. But after a while, I warmed up to it, and, there was aspects about it that I liked. Like some people really, they were happy that we were there and they were taking pictures, and then some people were like, you're ruining our sense enjoyment experience. Get out of here. It was just like really, really intense looks. And I'm just like, okay. I'm like, well, I guess that's life. Some people are going to be happy with what you're doing, and some people are going to not be happy with what you're doing. But there was some individuals that were like so deeply touched. This one particular woman you probably heard about, through, you may not, but anyway, this one particular woman, like, I mean, I just heard about it. I wasn't there personally in that moment, but it was just like so touching and so moving that there was something about the sound vibration. She was just connecting to Jesus, and it was just like filled her with so much love and like just overwhelming, like just joy. And it was just like, and it brought her to tears, and it was just so moving for her. And I was like, that was worth it. For me, like that one moment with that one woman, I felt like all the energy we put into coming all the way here, you know, because it took some, you know, energy and time, and, you know, it felt like, you know, it felt like that mattered. That mattered in that moment. Who knows what that spirit soul is going to do with her life thereafter? Like, who knows? Like, she could go on to open up a church and be a new leader in the community. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know. It's just, for me, it was like, it gave me more enthusiasm and like made me feel like, well, I'm going to give myself more. I'm going to be more rigorous and give myself more to this practice. So that was one thing that I wanted to share around like determination and enthusiasm, and to keep going. Association, I can see the direct results of that. Like if I'm associating with individuals that are just as committed and rigorous, and if I'm just associating with individuals that, you know, are just kind of dabbling here or there with this and that, and, you know, how does that affect me? You know, how does that affect my own practice, my own experience? And so I wrote down a whole bunch of stuff, like, I've been at, like, this whole past week, I guess it kind of like, in my personal life, I've been looking at like, okay, like, you know, I feel connected to my practice. I feel enthusiasm for my practice. But as far as like my material life and my family life, I feel like we're going through a lot of like challenges. There's a lot of stuff kind of not working anymore around the home, like the refrigerator, something wrong with that, it's leaking, and then the doorknobs aren't all working anymore, and the toilet's starting to make noise. It's just, it seems like there's like a lot of like things are kind of like, you know, and maybe that's just being in the material world, but and then at the same time, like I'm looking at like my own mental and emotional state around like what I do for a living. I mean, I feel like it's a service to the community. I can see that it's a service to do handyman work. It's what I do, and yet I feel like there's a higher purpose for me personally. I feel like there's a more like not only a more aligned way that maybe I serve the community and serve the world, that's dormant in me, that's not fully alive. I know that we kind of touched in on kind of just bringing to light a little bit of like, you know, my own self-worth, like looking at that, and then looking at like recently, you know, I had a coaching session yesterday, like I said, and I think, you know, I really connected to my own, like, you know, loving, like in my life as a whole, I feel like I haven't really been like in love with myself. Like, you know, I feel like it's been like, you know, I'm like just kind of like dealing with, okay, that's who I am. And, you know, it's like, let me try to make the best of this, and, you know, trying to, you know, navigate, and then coming into Krishna consciousness, seeing that, okay, I'm not even that character. I'm not even like, you know, that whole story that was my life up to this point. And I appreciate that, you know, but I'm still in this body. I still have this psychophysical nature. And I feel like I have like, I have an experience, my story, my life, and I have abilities, and I feel like I could be serving Srila Prabhupada and serving Krishna in a more profound way than I am. I feel like, yes, I'm doing service. I don't feel like ultimately that's my, like, you know, I'm at the, you know, I feel like there's more, you know, there's aspects of myself, you know, around self-worth and loving myself, that I feel like if I were in love with who I am, and if I did have a high value, saw myself in a high value, that I could be serving in a more profound way. I feel like it's kind of like playing out in this, like I'm playing small, or, you know, it's keeping me from like feeling like, I guess, like pushing myself and challenging myself to kind of move in a different direction, I guess, a more fulfilling direction. I don't know why I'm talking about this right now. I guess because, like I said, I feel a little bit, I have a lot of notes here, and every time I look at them, I can't read them. It's like I'm looking at it, but I can't see what I wrote. So I'm trying to like move some energy that's kind of going on in me, and so that I can, like, you know, kind of be more present in the moment. I feel like I'm a little bit kind of not here because of it. So, you know, it was funny because on the car ride down to Orlando, I was looking at, like, I was about to have a conversation with Damayanti about like my purpose in this life, and in serving Srila Prabhupada, serving Krishna, and even, like, you know, serving humanity. And right before I had that conversation, we got a flat tire, and I pulled off the road, and I changed the tire, and we got back in the car, and I was like, you know, right before we got this flat tire, I wanted to talk to you about my life's purpose, because it's something that, you know, I recently, the coaching that I got was from a male-focused organization on male, you know, different areas that men, you know, struggle. And so, and the organization helps men, like, you know, live in a more purposeful, you know, way, connect to something higher than themselves, their body, you know, connect to their spirit, and then connect to serving God, you know, in that process. So, you know, that's what kind of got me moving with this whole, like, you know, kind of considering for myself that I'm not fully aligned with, like, you know, my full service. And so, so it was kind of funny that, you know, we had that flat tire right there. And to me, it was like more confirmation, because a couple years ago when I had my appendix, I had an appendix removed. And then a year after that, I was in a car accident, and Damayanti kept saying, well, you're not aligned with who you are. You're not living your purpose. You have a higher purpose to serve. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And, you know, I'm trying to do art and, you know, my artistic expression. And that's definitely a higher level of purpose, I feel, than, you know, just, you know, the regular construction related stuff that I've been doing in my life. And so, so I feel like it's, you know, I don't, for whatever reason, you know, through coaching and, you know, seminars and everything that I've done, even my bhakti yoga practice, like, has helped me move forward. And yet I feel like, since I'm not, like, I don't know if it's like me not being 100% committed, or me like taking a look at trust and faith. And that's what came up for me with this particular verse, because that's a big part of the men's work that I'm looking at, is like, you know, trusting and having faith is a big part of going from like what's working in your life to like thriving and being excited and being like really like purposeful living, you know, is trust and faith. So I was looking at those two elements there. And I guess that's why I wanted to kind of talk about this men's work a little bit, because it brought to light, that's where I'm at. It's like, I can see that, you know, I have trust in this process. I have trust in giving myself to this process through the direct experience, but I'm still lacking some trust and faith that Krishna, God, is going to like provide everything that I need. I feel like I need to hold on to, like, well, I need this money to pay for our bills, and I can't trust the big unknown, the big question mark. And I'm thinking about, like, you know, being in family life and, you know, having all these financial responsibilities, and how extensive it can get, that it almost becomes like, for me personally, like there's a lot of extra stuff that I feel like I need to, like, be like, I need to know how it's all gonna work out, or I need to, like, it's up to me to make it work. And I feel like a lot of times that, like, oh, this must be so easy for, like, people that are single and they're just trusting and they're just, it's like, well, whatever, I could just live in my van, so, I guess that's what comes up for me too, where it's like, well, how can I trust and have faith? Because I have all these responsibilities and I have all this, like, I have so much more that's on the line, and like, so so I guess that's kind of what's going on for me too. So I'm hoping in some way, shape, or form this particular organization is going to help me, because they help men trust and have faith, because it's an issue that men deal with feeling like they have to do everything, they have to make sure it all works out. So yeah, I guess it kind of brings me back to this particular topic of this class, is like, having faith, and like, what does that look like? What does that look like in my life? And faith in some areas, and in other areas I feel like I'm lacking faith, so I'm like, I don't know, I'm just kind of like talking about that in this moment. Know where I'm going with it. So would anybody like to share about trust and faith for themselves? Does anybody have any questions?
I was thinking when you shared about having a sense that there is way higher gear, like, okay, you do handiwork, and then your heart work is already, more devotional, it's better, but there is something like more fulfilling, like, where it's complete surrender, like going for something higher than that. And I was thinking of the little sparrow, like this little sparrow, like she really started something that's really impossible.
Yeah.
With a little beak emptying the ocean is kind of what? And I think that's what it means to go for shooting the moon, or like Shama Sundar said, like chasing rhinos with her Swami, like chasing rhino for Srila Prabhupada, and really dreaming big for the spiritual master. Like, yeah, I'm going to empty the ocean for Srila Prabhupada. I'm going to empty the ocean. I don't know how it will happen. I don't know what it will look like, but I'm going to empty the ocean.
Yeah.
And it seems that's what it takes. And then it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, of course, money will come, food will come, and shelter will come. And even if it doesn't come, like Kula Vecha Sridhar, he was an associate of Lord Chaitanya, and there was hole in his hut. He was living with his family, and there was hole. He said, well, what's the point of fixing the hole anyway? Well, it's going to be all destroyed at the end.
Yeah. Something unconceivably, like, bigger. That's what I want. I want that experience. I want, like, and I'm a little bit kind of like, how do I like be in that, like, because I know there's a higher service beyond, like, even my art. Like, I know that's very, that's a higher level of service. At the same time, I feel like there's more there.
You don't know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, and I feel more like, I'm 45 and I'm like, I just, I was looking at my mom, just, being like, okay, it's like, I'm going to be where she's at in like, 20 years, and then what kind of experience do I want to create for myself before I get there? Do I want to be in the same place she is, like emotionally, mentally, which I could easily go there if I don't like, well, maybe not to the degree that she's at. I feel like I've done a bit of work. I feel like unfortunately she didn't really know how, or like have the resources, or just, it wasn't available for her. And but I feel like, just kind of sitting with that reality, old age is coming for me, it's like, and I'm just thinking about like what do I want to be thinking about in that moment? Like how I really like went for it. I really went for it. And, I gave myself 100%, and I went for it to serve Srila Prabhupada, to serve Krishna, like at the highest level I possibly could serve them with this body that I have, this male body I have, with the psychophysical nature I have. And yeah, so that's kind of what I'm looking at. I've had enough time. And well, one thing I did want to point out too, I was looking at like, my experience with coming into, even considering giving myself to a spiritual practice was coming into marriage life. And then marriage life, well, I'm committed to this experience, and yet like I want to like, I want to make this better. So, going to Savatov seminars and communication workshops, and, to try to better the relationship. And then, spiritual life actually makes family life better. So there's another step, in another direction. And then into initiation and the structure of the initiation, and seeing how my life, each level of commitment and structure that I'm taking on, whether it's family life or spiritual life, and seeing how it's more and more like bringing up like to surface, especially through the structure of this practice. It's bringing up aspects of myself that, I was, going to eat a hamburger to forget, or, going to have some, sexual activity with my wife to forget, every month, I mean, every 2 months or whatever, however often we were having it, even if it was every 3 months or 4 months, it was still in the back of my mind. It was like, well, I still have that to go to. Or at one point in my life, it was really interesting that, even though I stopped like using marijuana, if I had some stored somewhere, I felt secure. I felt like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore, but at least I have it if I need it, and I feel secure in myself. And so it was interesting to see, like, as the years progressed, like taking away stuff and not even having the option to go to it, certain activities, and how that affects my consciousness and affects me mentally and emotionally. It's like, if that's not even an option anymore, now what? Oh, something's stirring up in me. It's been a year, it's been 2 years. And I'm seeing like the direct experience of how, beneficial it is to refrain from the 4 regulated principles, in that like it really gives an individual the opportunity to really experience their experience, like, really experience your experience. We have a hand. Parampara, Hare Krishna. How do I turn your sound on? Do you turn it on, or?
He will do it by himself.
Can I do it? Ask to
Coming, hold on.
Hare Krishna.
I'm on my phone. Hare Krishna. Yeah, okay. Hare Krishna. I wanted to share earlier, but I was in between things. I'm just listening while I'm doing things. But you mentioned like you like to hear, testimonials. So I thought to share, because you're speaking about things that are relevant to me, as a man, and purpose and family and challenges and taking risks. And yeah, I was resonating with your experience of the Harinam. And that's like, okay, that's like purely spiritual service, right? Like, okay, I'm doing this thing that can be dovetailed to Krishna consciousness. I'm doing this thing that, can bring people to Krishna consciousness in a way. It's just like direct Krishna consciousness. So that's like a new frontier, like a new frontier, new possibility. Just like opening up to that, or have glimpses of that, of course. There's moments of that, and then yeah, what you were sharing about what I was hearing, like career, purposeful career, as a man, doing what I'm doing with my life is like spiritually relevant, ultimately directly Krishna conscious, and having faith. And I'll try to share without being too personal growthy, too much personal growthy stuff. But yeah, I think about clear intention. And so like for me, like, okay, to have the clarity first, like to be clear about what I want and where I'm going. Like we have these concepts from Savatov, and it's all whatever. It's all real. There's like consciousness and the results and clear intention and be to have and all these kind of things. And then, okay, so like clear intention, I want to put my consciousness where I want to be. And that's totally what Krishna consciousness process is about. That's totally what Prabhupada is preaching, is like put our consciousness in the result. Like the process is the goal, and the goal is the process. Like do devotional service. Like that's so much like what the Krishna conscious, this elevator system, just direct bhakti, straight to love of God. It's like there's no path, it's just a quantum leap. It's just directly to bhakti, directly to love of God. And that's like what Prabhupada is like, always be hearing Krishna, hearing and chanting our environment, what we're seeing with our eyes, what we're hearing with our ears. And so it's like, for me, I've got some faith in that principle through mundane material matters of like putting my consciousness in the result of what I want to create for myself, and having patience and trying not to be attached, and then taking risks, and it's whatever my risks and whatever my endeavors have been, spiritually fulfilling enough that there is that like, dependence on the Lord in some sense, in some way. And so anytime that I've given some risk, taking initiation was a risk, and then, whatever. Anytime I've taken a risk, committed, there's a saying, put your money where your mouth is. It's like really put the chips down, really put the money down, really put myself on the line, put myself out there, take a risk. Even though I haven't taken big risks, I can think of many people in our community take much bigger risks. I haven't taken very many risks, rather conservative, but still every time I see that I've taken some sort of risk, at least for me, from where I'm at, and then I've had the experience of like, oh, I've been sheltered, I've been taken care of, I've still gotten what I needed, maybe I didn't succeed, but it was okay. And like, so that process, has given me faith and trust. And then like, if I first start talking about clear intention, and like, so different aspects of clear intention, like there's the clarity, and then there's like actually having the intensity of like the desire, like this is really something I want. I actually have the desire, the intensity, the intention and intensity are similar. Like there's some intensity there that it's like, it's real for me. And then like the belief that it's possible is one. And then the last part is like belief that it's possible for me. So that was like like faith in God and Krishna was a big part of that belief that it's possible in general. Like for me to do my, like, for example, like my career to like, for a long time, it was like, I wanted to stop doing car detailing but keep managing the business. And it seemed like this like unattainable mountain, like just like, I don't know how that's going to happen. But I wanted it. I just kept holding that desire. Okay. Clear intention, conscious the result. And then at some point, and maybe even the beginning, I didn't even know if it was possible. But then I was like, at some point, I was like, well, this is just manipulating material energy. It's just like, it's a business thing. It's like, just stop doing this and do managing business. And it's just like manipulating matter. And I was like, of course, Krishna will allow that to happen. It was like, of course it's possible. But like, so that was like the first step. And like that required some faith in the Lord, you know, Krishna himself. And then there's the part of the belief that it's possible for me. Like, and then that, you know, that was like, that was a process. And that is kind of maybe some of things we think of as personal growth was, you know, helpful for me in that, like the belief that it's possible for me. But still it was like, okay, for me, that, so at first it was like, well, of course, Krishna will allow this to happen. And then at some point it was like, well, if, you know, Krishna will allow this to happen for me, you know? So anyway, those are some things I wanted to share that came up for me while you were, I was trying to, you know, my personal testimony. And I feel like, yeah, that I have more faith and I have more practice of like doing it with maybe more mundane material things. Like it's a good practice. And now I have some more faith in like putting that towards more spiritual, like for instance, like waking up every day early. Like right now, that's kind of like how I was 10 years ago about the car detailing business. Like it seems impossible. I don't know how I'm going to wake up every day early, but I'm like, okay, let me apply the same process that I did for that. And hey, it worked with that. You know, Krishna allowed this to happen, then I'm sure Krishna will allow me to wake up earlier to like chant Hare Krishna. So that's where I'm at currently, is like, okay, I'm on the beginning stages of like, okay, changing my thought, changing my belief, changing my expectation of like what's possible, and just being open to the idea, or, you know, you know, that opening my thoughts and my minds to like the possibility, you know, that it can happen for me. So Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you for sharing, Prabhupada. That was when you first started sharing about the Sankirtan experience and taking a look. And I think you and I had a conversation how, you know, it's a new direction for both you and I, you know, regarding our personal practice, and that, like, you know, what would our personal practice be like if there was more of that activity that we were, you know, creating and engaging in. And yeah, I forgot about that element as well till you brought it up. Yeah, that was big for me. Seeing like, well, this is, you know, Lord Chaitanya's movement. Like it's, you know, dancing and chanting the holy names in the street, and, you know, sharing it with the world. Like, you know, what it seems like, okay, that probably makes sense that we should probably be doing it too. to some degree, you know, at least have that like a regular part of the practice, not so much like, oh, we just live our personal lives and we have our own personal practice in our homes, or, you know, what have you. So yeah, I was connecting to that, you know, and appreciating that as well. And it moved a lot of energy in for me and inspired me in different ways. And I had a lot of ideas there after that experience. And then also, yeah, hearing from you, like your process of, you know, clear intention, putting your consciousness in the result, and, you know, opening yourself up to like what is possible for yourself, what is possible in general, you know, for one, and then like what's possible for me, it seemed like that was a piece that, like, you know, and I think that's might be a men, it might be common for men, you know, to kind of look at like, you know, well, I don't deserve that, I'm not good enough or smart enough, or, you know, whatever dialogue I personally tell myself, you know, I can't achieve that. I don't have any education, you know, it's like I'm whatever dialogue's going on for me, to change that dialogue to, or at least be open to like receive something bigger, more meaningful, purposeful for my life. Yeah, and you've seen personally that through that experience that you've seen the results of that, and it's helped you acquire more faith, not only in like what's possible for you materially, but also like what experience I possibly could have like spiritually, you know, if I give myself more fully to this process. And I was thinking about like the sparrow, like thinking about her eggs, you know, it's just like, that's it. She's like, I'm getting my eggs back, you know, and just giving herself that, like, that possibility that she could get her eggs back if she was determined enough. And it's like, however impossible that was, because I mean, you would think a bird would be like, my eggs are gone, you know, I guess I'll go somewhere else and maybe lay some eggs some other time, you know, but she was like, no, I'm getting my eggs back. Even though it's impossible. So yeah, it's like this process of like, no, I'm going to receive like a higher purpose because, you know, it's possible, and I'm going to give myself to that process, and at least be open to give myself to that process. Whereas before, you know, closing, you know, different ways, at least I could see personally how, you know, I was hearing a little bit from you too, how you were not allowing that to be received in your life. You were blocking that from being received, and you know, I could relate to that experience as well. Thank you for sharing, Parampara. Hare Krishna. Mother Malini, you have your yellow hand raised.
I was just thinking, this morning I went to Mangalarti. I went to the temple for the morning program, and I saw a devotee that I knew, you know, 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago. And at that time, that devotee, he was married with 2 children, 2 boys. And he was maintaining his family by driving every day to St. Augustine and distributing books.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And he's at the temple
Wow.
in the morning, every morning, and he looks, I don't know what he's doing now. I didn't get to speak with him. And I just want to put that. He's just like, yeah, he had 2 boys, a wife and 2 boys. And he was every day driving to St. Augustine and spending the day in St. Augustine, distributing books, getting donation from the tourists. And that's how he was maintaining his family.
Wow. Hare Krishna. That's amazing.
Well, he's at the temple every day. You can speak with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it's like very it's really like, okay, like where do we put the limitation, like the limitation of what's possible for us?
Yeah.
And for him, you know, it was okay, that's what I do. And I had experience in Sankirtan, like really collecting thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars by book distribution. And in Kali Yoga, it's so easy to get stuck in like in that wheel of like, oh, I unless I work very hard and do the job I hate. And in America, even more so, it's like really an American mentality more than other places. Like I didn't grow up with that, so it's easier for me. But there is such a mentality in America that you need to work really hard and make a lot of money. It's not okay to just, you know, do what you love and get whatever money comes your way when you do what you love. It's like not part of the culture.
Yeah.
Of course, you know what I'm saying on the material level. So what to speak, like, you know, to devote everything in spiritual life become difficult. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. I knew a woman. It was an interesting couple in Japan. He was American, she was Japanese, and they had 2 daughters. And the man was staying at home. he was a stay-at-home father who was homeschooling his daughters, and the woman, Gopika, I think her name was Gopika, and she was going on Sankirtan every day. And that's the family maintenance was book distribution.
Wow. Hare Krishna. So I'm gonna read the verse one more time. Where are we? I don't know how far we go with time, but I'm gonna read the verse one more time, and then so yes, the translation. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with undeviating determination and faith. One should abandon, without exception, all material desires born of false ego, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Unless if there's any more questions or comments or anything, anybody else want to share anything before we go? Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Thank you,
Thank
Garuda
you.
Prabhu. Very enlivening class, and hearing, your realization and presentation of the philosophy felt supportive of my spiritual life. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. Hare Bol.
Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.